A beautiful afternoon here in Jerusalem, Israel. I'm sitting with Erick Stakelbeck. Stacks, as they say. And Erick, first of all, I love your broadcast, The Watchman.
Thank you, Matt.
I love
Thank
it.
you so much for having it on TBN. It's an honor to be a part of the TBN
It's a
family.
co-production with Christians United for Israel. Hello, Dr. Hagee. Love you. And it's a co-op. It's a co-production between Christians United for Israel and Trinity Broadcasting, exclusive broadcasting. You do a lot of shooting here in Israel. The Watchman, it's on TBN exclusively. I love it.
It's the most coveted piece of real estate in the world. ISIS envisions it as the crown jewel of its caliphate. Iran's mullahs have the same dream. The UN wants to divide it and make its eastern half the capital of a Palestinian state.
You're now moving into the Hispanic market. You're on Enlace now 3 times a week. And your name in Spanish?
El Vigilante.
El Vigilante. I like it. So look into the camera. Just there. Just kind of smile at the camera there, camera 3. So, Jenna, when I hear Il Vigilante, I kind of see the luchador mask and you know. So just hold still right there. Let Jenna do her work. There you go. There it is. The mask. Maybe a sombrero. Maybe. You'll have to tilt up. Camera 3, tilt up.
The poncho that Clint Eastwood used to wear.
There you go.
You know, that poncho, too.
Yeah.
Used to wear.
I think the sombrero and the luchador mask, it's working.
I like it.
Il Vigilante. Okay, the Watchman in Spanish. All right, Erick. So, listen. Whenever I see your broadcast, I love it. You go unique places in Israel. You tell us the importance of Israel all the time. The program is amazing. If you haven't seen The Watchman, watch it. It's amazing. I want to talk about you a little bit. First of all, where do you come from? Okay, where are you from?
Yeah, you know, El Vigilante is fitting. It's a tough name because I'm from Philadelphia, a very tough city. You might have seen Philadelphia Eagles fans during the Super Bowl run recently, Matt. So come from Northeast Philadelphia, a working-class neighborhood. You know, I talk about the movie Good Will Hunting. A great movie, kind of like that kind of vibe. Heavily Irish, Italian, Polish, Puerto Rican, ethnic neighborhoods, row houses. That's where I'm from. I'm a very unlikely person to be sitting here in Jerusalem, to say the least.
Okay, so your story, let's walk through it a little bit. We're in Jerusalem. You're sitting here today as the host of The Watchman, an amazing broadcast. You're unlikely the guy that should be sitting here. Tell that story.
Absolutely. You know, Matt, it all stems from my dad. He passed away in 2003, but my dad was a working class guy, salt of the earth, grew up, had a horrible upbringing, really tough life, had nothing, but he was a self-made man. He was an electrician and a tool cutter. He worked in a factory in Philadelphia. I remember him every day coming home, his whole shirt drenched, no air conditioning, in a factory all day, every day. But my dad was so intellectually curious. Number one, he was a paratrooper, U.S. military veteran. But number two, he was a voracious reader. Everything he could get his hands on, from the Bible to books about history, military history. Matt, it was very unlikely where I grew up. The usual conversations were Eagles, Phillies, Flyers, 76ers.
Sandwiches.
Sandwiches, cheesesteaks. I'll get you a good one next time we're in Philly together. But so that was my atmosphere growing up, and I loved it. I was an athlete and everything else. But my dad was a whole other side. These dinner table conversations, my brother, my sister, and I talking about King David, Stalingrad, the Entebbe raid, Jerusalem. Amazing. I'm 14, 15 years old, soaking it all in. And he knew the Bible. He was a prophecy buff. As a matter of fact, Matt, I'm kind of a young believer. I just got saved in 2009. My dad, I was 21 years old. I was living in the world, and he handed me a copy of Hal Lindsey's book, The Late Great Planet Earth. And as you know so well, so many people have come to the Lord through Hal's book. And I was living in the world, Matt, and it shook me to my core. And because I was a follower of world affairs, the Middle East was a passion of mine, I said, oh my gosh, all of this stuff that Hal is writing about is unfolding today in real time. It really shook me. Now, it took me another 10 years to finally be born again and give my life to the Lord, but my dad planted the seeds with that book.
Wow, beautiful. Walk us through your pathway. The, little comment, when one of your guests, right before camera starts, goes, you know what, I've got a bullet in my hip and all that. It's like, you can't just pass over that kind of.
Yeah.
You kind of miss that part of the story.
Right.
So where'd the bullet come from?
It's so funny because you and I have known each other for a few years, Matt. But my wife said you have to share your testimony with Matt. He knows you, but he doesn't really know you.
Got it.
The bullet. Well, there's 2 incidents, Matt. 2, I would say, near-death experiences where God Almighty saved my life. The worst experience, I have to say, was the baseball bat. I'll get to that in a second. And it was not batting practice. On my head it was, but it was not at a batting cage, unfortunately. The gunshot, 1999. I'm 23 years old. I just graduated college. I'm ready to embark on a journalism career. It's the first nice night of the year. I'm still living in Philadelphia, Northeast Philadelphia, where I grew up. First nice night of the year, me and the guys get together. We play full court basketball. Afterwards, we're standing around just talking and catching up. 3 guys walk up. They were obviously under the influence of something. They were looking for someone. Long story short, the guy they were looking for wasn't there. The 3 of them leave. 5 minutes later, one of them comes back, opens fire, starts shooting.
Wow.
Now, I'm the tallest guy there,
Yes.
and I'm the easiest target, of course. Only about 5 feet. There was a chain link fence separating us, 5 feet away. I remember, I tell people it felt like a mule kick. It felt like a horse just backed up and kicked me right in my right hip. And I looked up, and I saw a gun in his hand as he's swaying back and forth. I didn't fall. A pure adrenaline, we ran. About 15 guys there. He continued to shoot behind us even as we ran. Could have hit someone in the back. But, of course, I'm the only one who got hit. My old friends who I grew up with say, hey, I'd take a bullet for you. I said, where were you when I needed you? So bullet in my hip. And a funny side story, get in the car, rushing to the hospital, 2 friends driving and a friend in the back. And it tells you the kind of mentality the guys I grew up with. You figure he'd say, you're going to be okay. I said, what do you think? How does it look? Mesh basketball shorts on, Matt. This pool of blood is forming. I don't know if it's my kidney, my intestines. Am I going to die? I've just been shot. And I said, what do you think? He looks and he says, I don't know, man, but it doesn't look good. People from Philadelphia are very honest, to say the least. So long story short, we get to the hospital. Thank God I was stabilized right away. But 22 caliber bullet, still in me, by the way. They decided not to take it out because it was very close to my femoral artery, which basically you could bleed out and die. It was just not even an inch from that main artery. So the doctor said, look, we're not going to do surgery. We're going to leave it in. So the bullet remains in. I do want to say one thing. My journalism career started in that hospital bed. This is the goodness of God, Matt. It was the lowest point in my life. I'm laying in bed with a bullet in my hip. What are people going to think? I wasn't doing anything wrong. I just graduated college. I was playing basketball. It was wrong place, wrong time. Ultimate low in my life. And I didn't sleep a wink the first night. Horrible pain, obviously. The next morning, I get a call from my father in the hospital, 9 a.m. in the morning. And he said, hey, you got a call from Slam Magazine. Now, it's a basketball magazine.
Yeah.
I had sent resumes out on a whim. It's a national publication. He said, they want you to write an article for them.
Wow.
So it was almost like God was saying, I still have something for you. You're in a low point right now. You have a bullet in your hip, but I still have a great plan for your life. That was the beginning of my journalism career, and now I'm sitting here with you in Jerusalem.
Is bullet in my hip a nice way of saying you got shut in the butt?
No.
It actually hit your
it's
hip?
literally in my hip on the front side.
Got it. So you
But
didn't get shot
I
in
do
the
have
butt.
children, thankfully, so it worked out okay.
Yeah.
But there was some concern.
Got it. All right. I don't need any more information than that, so you can tell me later. All right. Erick Stakelbeck, the journey of your journalism career, starting with Slam Magazine.
Yeah.
So you're this article,
Yeah.
and it makes sense because you're like 7.5 feet tall. But how do you progress now to your passion that your father instilled in you?
Right.
To the Watchmen. Here on TBN.
Yeah.
Continue the story.
Matt, you said it. This is my passion. This is my heart. And it always was. I never thought it would be a career. I knew I wanted to be a journalist. I started out in print, actually, a writer. And they say, write what you know. Well, I was a basketball player. I played in college. I said, okay, I'll try my hand at sports writing. Did it for about 1.5 years, enjoyed it, but it was completely unfulfilling. I didn't know the Lord personally yet, but I knew he had something else for my life. So fast forward to 9/11. I was shook to my core like we all were. And just as a concerned American, the day after 9/11, literally, went out, bought everything I could get my hands on about radical Islam, about the Middle East and jihad. I bought the Quran. I started reading the Bible, finally, for myself, not just hearing my father's stories, but reading it for myself. God drew me to his word. And just as a concerned American, I already had the background of information, I guess you would say, from my father and from following the news. I was a news junkie, a political foreign policy junkie, but I really dug deep for about a year and still never thought it would be a career. I just thought after 9/11 that the other shoe was going to drop, right? We had the anthrax mailings, if you think back then to the fall of 2001, a scary time. And one day, my wife and I are walking on the beach. We're on vacation. No place exotic, by the way, the Jersey Shore. That's not exactly the white sands, but good pizza.
Yeah,
and good people.
Yeah.
Good. And Snooki wasn't there, by the way.
Got it.
So we're walking down the shore on the beach, and my wife said, I'm talking about jihad or radical Islam. And my wife says, you're a writer. Write about it. So it was like the light bulb went off in my head. And long story short, I started sending clips out of my writing to different people. Few people gave me a shot, and ended up moving to Washington, D.C., and transitioning into TV. Our good friends at CBN hired me. And by the grace of God, hired me and threw me on camera. Didn't know what I was doing at the time, but I had a great run at CBN, and now I'm here at TBN, and I'm...
Okay, I remember a few years ago, one of our board members at Trinity, Colby May, just said, hey, take a look at this, and kind of sent me some links to some of the content. How did you connect with Colby, who, by the way, loves Israel and, has been here now a number of times? And by the way, let me just say, let's have this beautiful wide shot here. And it is absolutely becoming beautiful here this afternoon as we're sharing. A lot of people tune this channel on at this time when they see this, and they think this is not real. Well, it is real. Get it? It is real.
That's right.
Like that? Yeah.
This is not a green screen.
It's real. Okay, it is real. So the gold dome of Mount Moriah, the city of David, is visible. We have Mount Zion, Mount Moriah, Mount Scopus, Mount of Olives in our background. Our guest is here all the time. This is a promo for a show. If you haven't seen it, The Watchmen, right here on TBN. Watch this.
Welcome to Jerusalem, where every week on The Watchman Show, we are bringing you the inside story of Israel and how it affects you. From security threats like Iran and ISIS, to amazing biblical history, to stories of Israel fulfilling its destiny as a light unto the nations, our team at Christians United for Israel is committed to bringing you the truth about God's land. Join us every Friday night, exclusively on TBN, as we set the record straight on what's really happening right here in the Middle East. For Zion's sake, we will not remain silent.
The Watchmen, right here on TBN. Erick Stakelbeck, now in the Spanish language. You are El Vigilante. I like it. El Vigilante. 3 times a week in Spanish on Enlace, all over Central and South America. Wherever Enlace is an amazing network. Enlace.
Sure.
Been partnered with them forever. All right. So I want to ask you, first of all, how you got totally connected to TBN, and that was through Colby May. But then the importance, as we are here talking, we got some pretty important events happening here in Israel this year, 2018, that are amazing. So how'd you meet Colby?
I met Colby in D.C., and the man who made the introduction was Jay Jones.
Really?
Jay Jones of TBN. Yes, I have to give Jay a shout out. My good friend. I've known Jay since 2010. We met at the NRB convention. And he said, hey, I love your work. And we started talking. He said, hey, there's someone in D.C. you need to meet. Now, I know Jay Sekulow very well. I've known Jay for years. and he and Colby have worked together, obviously. So Colby and I had lunch.
Nice.
And I made the pitch, and it described my vision for the Watchmen, coming to Israel on a frequent basis and doing some hard-hitting stuff, but also the great things happening in Israel. That's why I love the show, Matt, because, yes, we're talking Iran and Hamas and Hezbollah, all that scary stuff, which we have to talk about, but we're also talking about the amazing archaeological finds here in Israel that prove the truth of the Bible.
The desert coming to life.
It's a miracle of God. Only God. The medical, the scientific, the high-tech breakthroughs that Israel is involved in right now. It's a tiny country the size of the state of New Jersey. Speaking of Jersey, true story. But it's amazing. Israel punches far above its weight. When there's an earthquake in Mexico City, Hurricane Harvey in Houston, Israeli first responders are the first on the ground every time, really being a light in the darkness. Amazing, encouraging things happening here in God's land in 2018.
I like it. Okay. 2017, last year, we saw the 50-year, Jubilee year of the reunification of East and West Jerusalem. We are talking to you today from Mount Givat Hanania, okay? That is the Mount of Grace. And so now, 218, the embassy move, scale to 1 to 10, that's pretty much a 10, I think.
10.
Okay. Why?
Number one, it solidifies Israel's ownership of the city of Jerusalem. It solidifies, Matt, that what you and I have known since we were little, that Jerusalem is the eternal ancestral capital of Israel and the Jewish people. God makes it clear in his word. This is a city where God Almighty has written his name forever. Okay. God is very black and white when it comes to Jerusalem. Really not many gray areas here. God is very forthright, very down the line. Jerusalem is my city, and it belongs to Israel and the Jewish people. What the United States has done, and Matt, I think, look, as the leader of the free world, we should be the first ones to do this. We have said to the world that we recognize Jerusalem as Israel's eternal capital. As President Trump has said, we're taking that off the table.
Yeah.
It's a done deal. Jerusalem is Israel's capital. Sounds like common sense to us, but to a good chunk of the world, it's not.
Why?
Well, there's obviously a lot of Israel hatred in the world. Okay. That's biblical. We've seen that for 3,000 years plus, obviously, but Israel survives and thrives. All its enemies end up in the ash heap of history. That's also a fact. But I look at Europe and the European Union, the UN, the international bodies, Matt, and there's a lack of moral clarity.
Hamas, for example, already calling for a day of rage.
The use of the veto obstructed the Security Council.
There's this moral relativism. I like to say that we live in a Winston Churchill moment. And I see Prime Minister Netanyahu, I see President Trump making tough decisions, making tough calls that are very unpopular, but they're doing the right thing. Imagine that. Today, we don't have that spine, that backbone, I believe, quite frankly, among many Western leaders, and in particular at the UN, these international bodies. Everything, we said black and white, everything is gray, shades of gray for many in the West today. And when it comes to Israel, there's not only shades of gray, there's a hostility to Israel. I believe a lot of it is anti-Semitism, which is deeply ingrained in Europe for centuries. But another part of it, I think, is that Israel, it's pretty amazing that in the eyes of the world, Matt, David has become Goliath. Wow. Israel, which was the underdog, the plucky Israelis, 1967, defeated the Arab armies against overwhelming odds. Now Israel is looked at as the bully and the oppressor of the Palestinian people. Isn't it amazing how it flipped? In 50 years, it flipped like that. So Israel's up against it, but good things are happening. Look, the U.S.-Israel relationship solidifying, obviously, with the embassy moving. I look at Latin America. We're talking about Enlace. Latin America is a place where Israel is making major inroads. Guatemala is moving their embassy. Paraguay, Honduras, other Latin American countries reportedly considering moving their embassy. Israel's in Africa now. Prime Minister Netanyahu making great inroads there with the leaders in Africa. So good. India, a major, obviously, alliance for Israel that could pay a lot of dividends. So good things are happening. Israel is not as isolated as people would like to think.
Why is this move so important?
The embassy move, number one, it does solidify Israel's ownership of Jerusalem. Again, it takes it off the table. But even more importantly, Matt, it tells the world. It tells the world. It's not just America saying, okay, we're going to move our embassy. It's a powerful shot across the bow by the leader of the free world, declaring to the world, laying down the gauntlet that this is how it's going to be. Jerusalem is it. Hands off. Don't even think about it. It's also a message, I think, Matt, to rogue regimes, to terrorists, to tyrants who would like to wipe Israel and America, by the way, off the map. It's a clear message to me against terror. It's the United States saying we won't be intimidated. Now, in the run-up to the announcement of the embassy move in December, Matt, if you remember, the international media, the UN, Palestinian leadership, the European Union, they were howling in dismay that the embassy was going to be moved. And they said this is going to spark another intifada. It's going to set the region on fire. Number one, Matt, the region, in case you haven't noticed, has been on fire for about 3,000 years, but in particular the past 8 years or so. Yeah. Syria, across the border, 500,000 people killed. So that's number one. The region's already on fire. But number two, it didn't happen. There were some protests, yes, but nothing along the lines of these doomsday predictions that we were getting from the mainstream media pundits. So we showed a lot of spine. We did the right thing. I can just boil it down to one phrase, Matt. We did the right thing, and I think God is going to smile on the United States for it. I really do.
It's a beautiful day in Jerusalem today. It's, I mean,
immaculate.
It's just absolutely an amazing day. There are no fires burning behind us. If there were, you would see them. And this move of the United States, bold move to move our embassy down, I thought was going to be happening next year. I didn't think we're gonna be able to pull it off. I mean, we have a consulate just kind of not far from here, and I suppose it's as easy as moving the ambassador, putting him at a desk there, and then all of a sudden that's the embassy. I get it. So it's not a difficult thing. We're not building a building here. I mean, the United States is not building a building here. It's already built. Nice compound over this way.
A few blocks, yeah.
And so as we sit here, this conversation is super relevant for the next several months. And one of the things, the book Jerusalem by Jay Sekulow, it was just a absolute providential thing, because that book was already placed at a secular distributor, big, huge publishing company. And Jay paused for a moment, and we got on the phone, and I said, Jay, let's do this together. This book, Jerusalem, was written basically like he would have written a Supreme Court case. Yeah. It is why the Jews have a right to this land, written by Jay Sekulow. Yeah. It is the information is on the screen. It is this month's book offer, and I want you to get it. But Jay Sekulow wrote this just like if he had been asked to go to the Supreme Court.
Which he has done many times.
Many times, and make an argument on behalf of Israel and the Jews and this part of the world in this land. Basically, the world is not fighting against Israel. They're fighting against God. Exactly. He spoke it. He gave the borders. He gave the land. And anyone that chooses to not recognize that is basically just fighting against God. Just your show in general. And when does it air on TBN?
It airs Friday nights, 10:30 Eastern. Okay. And Wednesdays, 6:30 Eastern, the two kind of prime spots to watch it. Also airs at a few later times. But new episodes every Friday night, 10:30 Eastern. And you can see the re-air on Wednesday evenings, 6:30 Eastern.
Final thoughts, Erick Stakelbeck.
Number one, the embassy move, Matt. I'm glad you brought it up again, because I talked about what it means in the natural at first. But let's talk about the prophetic. You know, the book of Isaiah, chapter 40 says, the glory of the Lord will be revealed, and the entire world will see it. They're going to see it right here where we're sitting in Jerusalem. That's why it's so important. Jerusalem is, once again, with this embassy move, it's the center of the world once again. The glory of the Lord right here behind us, man. We're sitting here now. So that's number one. That's the main thing to take away about the embassy. Number two, with the Watchmen, we're going to continue to bring the hard-hitting stories. You know, the Bible says, my people perish for lack of knowledge. We believe people would rather know than not know, our TBN viewers, when it comes to Iran, Hamas, Hezbollah, these threats that gather not only against Israel, but against America. Israel is just the first line of defense for us, standing in the gap. The barbarians are not just at the gates here, they are inside the gates.
Yes.
And Israel is holding them back for us. We're going to hit those, but also we're going to continue to bring you those great stories that prove, number one, the truth of the Bible, the absolute irrefutable truth. When you combine the Bible with archaeological, scientific proof, you have an unbeatable combination. We're going to show that, but also I want to encourage people about what God is doing in this land and how it impacts them. The medical, the scientific, the amazing high-tech breakthroughs. Matt, I believe if there is a cure for Alzheimer's or cancer found soon, it will be found right here in Israel.
It's a beautiful day in Jerusalem. Erick Stakelbeck is the host of The Watchman. It's exclusive content right here in partnership. The financing is in partnership, first of all, you, the TBN partners, thank you, and with Christians United for Israel, CUFI. And so thank you to all those members of CUFI and to Dr. Hagee. Love you there in San Antonio. So right here, if you haven't seen it, as we're saying goodbye, first of all, thank you, Eric.
Thank you,
Great
Matt.
job today. And watch this, a clip from The Watchman.
Welcome to Jerusalem, where every week on The Watchman Show, we are bringing you the inside story of Israel and how it affects you. From security threats like Iran and ISIS, to amazing biblical history, to stories of Israel fulfilling its destiny as a light unto the nations, our team at Christians United for Israel is committed to bringing you the truth about God's land. Join us every Friday night, exclusively on TBN, as we set the record straight on what's really happening right here in the Middle East. For Zion's sake, we will not remain silent.